Vaughan Williams, he's all inspiration 100% of the time. Art for him has a purpose. Take humanity and elevate it. Elevate it to a level of beauty that almost transcends humanness. That perhaps is an aspiration, but at his core, he is an amazing humanist, an amazingly deep-feeling person. And it comes through in all of his music. Vaughan Williams, very early in his life, was captivated by English folk songs. And he was a nationalist, I suppose, only to the extent that he felt that that was an important part of English identity. But the word nationalist has a bad buzz to it. He wasn't a nationalist in that he felt any kind of superiority to any other nation or any other religion. He just wasn't that kind of man. He was a globalist, I guess we would call him. This is what he felt about folk songs. It's an art which grows straight out of the needs of a people, and for which a fitting and perfect form, albeit on a small scale, has been found by those people. An art which is indigenous and knows nothing to any outside itself. Above all, an art which, to us today, has something to say. A true art which has beauty and vitality now in the 20th century. So he believed in these individual creative expressions of shared cultural experiences. And with his friend Butterworth, they accumulated many such examples in the countryside when he was a young man. Sadly, Butterworth died during World War I, one of 6 close associates of Vaughan Williams who died in that conflict. He did many works prior to that conflict, and they are regarded, many of them, as pastoral. There's often a tender quality to pastoral. There's an emphasis on cellos and violas and such, and strings, to give it a flowing feeling. And as far as the pacing is very important, it's pacing which takes its time, despite the lyricism. It's not rushed. And at its best, there's a very light solemnity to pastoral. So, you know, you can imagine the Hudson Valley, you can picture yourself in its woods, enjoying that component, and then listening to some of Vaughan Williams' music. And of course, some of this music is tied to folk songs. The Lark Ascending, it's funny, I befriended a woman, Cora. She used to play a violin in the Metropolitan Opera, and she happens to sit right next to me at Alice Tully Hall. She said, oh, yes, I once played it. And she made this motion with her hands, simulating the bird just floating in the air. And it really captures that. And at the end, the bird just gradually vanishes into nothing. And so there is this concept in music that, and art, that sometimes when something gets so beautiful, it's so transcendent, it either just dies because our experience can't admit of it anymore, or it disappears. This was one of the first pieces that Vaughan Williams wrote after World War I. And where, this humanist, where was he in World War I? Of all things, he was an ambulance driver. He saw the worst of it. So what is the first piece that he writes after World War I? It's the Lark Ascending. It's about a transcendent beauty, you know, and it's not self-pity or anything like that. When you understand the context, and context is important, I believe, when you're talking about musicians, this becomes really, really moving. The 4th Symphony occurs just before World War II. He's too old to fight. And look what he went through in World War I. The 4th Symphony is dissonant, it's strident, it's explosive, and it's frightening. And if ever a piece conveyed anxiety, this is the piece. There's a kind of a creeping quality to the anxiety that makes the whole thing extremely effective. I'm very much looking forward to this, Sir John in Love, because it's a masterpiece. It's Vaughan Williams at his height. It's Vaughan Williams using the orchestra to its fullest. It's using the orchestra to portray different moods and different characters expertly. I personally can't wait to hear it. The most important thing I have to say is I hope I've conveyed to you the joy of listening to music at Bard. This auditorium is really special. The sound is bright, and you can achieve a transparency because all the instruments are somewhat singular. It's so beautifully transmitted. You feel, no matter where you sit, like you're conducting, like you're in the middle of it all. It really is a remarkable place to hear music.